Welcome to Super Talk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
You ready?
Yeah, we got a show.
We got a long show today.
If
we're not over an hour, I don't know what the F we're doing, because this is going to take a long time.
This is going to be a long show. Hang with us, YouTube.
Please, YouTube.
Hang with us. We got some really cool shit to talk about. All right, brother. Like a gentleman. You ready?
Yeah.
In 3.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 116. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Straight back from Father's Day fishing tournament, Tony Estrella. How you doing, buddy?
Professor Pettis. Straight back from Father's Day with your father.
Yeah.
That's a good time, man. You just told me the whole story. Sounded like a great time.
Yeah.
Real quick, where'd you go?
I went to, we went to Kohler, Wisconsin. I went on a little golf trip with my dad over the weekend. We played also in Erin Hills, but also Kohler, Wisconsin. I just want to give a big shout out to the people of Wisconsin. I don't think I've ever experienced a nicer community of individuals. The customer service was off the charts. The weather was off the chart. Everything was just so good. So big shout out.
Cheese?
It was good, of course. So I'm telling you, these situations are crazy. So you're playing golf on a golf course, and you get to they have a halfway house, where you grab snacks and food and everything else. Complimentary bratwursts.
Wow.
Free. Anybody want a bratwurst? Sure. Those are complimentary.
Wow.
Every round of golf, you can have a bratwurst, and it costs you nothing. Now, you're in the land of cheese and sausages, and they're giving away sausages. I'm like, this is great.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
We did end up having, and I told my dad, I said, you got it. He's like, what are the cheese curds? I keep seeing them on the menu. I was like, oh, you got to try them. Yeah. It's fried cheese. It's basically cheese curds, and they dip in batter and then fry. I mean, come on, who doesn't like that? So we had to have something.
Good for you. Yeah. Fantastic time.
It was awesome. All
right, brother. We got a lot to go. And to be honest with you, we got a lot to go over. People, we're doing Kraven trailer.
Look.
We're doing the Flash. Yeah, buckle up, people. We're doing the Flash. We're doing...
we have so much news to cover. Look, guys, buckle up. Please be patient. It's going to be a long show. We have so much to talk about. We were literally going over the agenda, and there is so much to discuss this episode. Please be patient with us. We'll try to do it as quickly as we can, but there's a lot to talk about, and we do want to give our opinions and talk about what we need to talk about. So,
and remember, we're not on any Hollywood insider payroll. So this time is unfiltered, real deal, non-biased, non-Hollywood bullshit. You're going to hear it straight from two geeks in some old man's basement.
Yeah, we're going to get through it all. So, of course, we want to start by thanking the listeners that support us, and those are our patrons. Patreon.com/supertalk. If you want to become a patron, really helps us out. $1 an episode. It's all it really takes to support the show directly. Those patrons out there that are supporting us, we really appreciate it. You're the lifeblood of the show, so really thank you for everything you do for us. Look, let's jump into it. We'll go in the reviews section. We do have a couple of reviews this week to talk through. First one, Sony finally dropped the trailer for Kraven the Hunter. Would this drop on Sunday, I believe it was? Sunday or Monday? Was it Sunday or Monday? I'm going to say Monday.
Okay, you can say Monday.
Because I think it was Monday, because I ended up watching it when I got to the airport.
Wednesday was the news was Wednesday was going to be released in a European ComiCon. So they were announcing that it was going to be released, but it was leaked early on Monday.
So you watched the trailer. I was on the golf course, so I hadn't had a chance to watch it. You watched the trailer, said you were disappointed, and then you watched the red band version of the trailer, which is what was shown at some Sony event or was it Comic-Con last year or something?
No, the red band.
It was shown earlier. People had seen kind of some clips from the red band trailer before, but you watched the red band trailer. You said it's better.
The first trailer that I watched was not the red band trailer. It was not the rated R trailer, and it was extremely disappointing. Now, the red band trailer was not as disappointing, but I still have questions and doubt. There is a vibe to this movie that is very reminiscent of Black Adam. And as we've said before, the biggest part of Black Adam that fell flat on its fucking face was that they insisted on making this anti-hero a hero. Instead of him being a villain and a bad guy, they softened him around the corners because Dwayne Johnson can never be a bad guy, has to be loved by all, and they made it a fluffy, feel-good movie, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been, and I hope they don't do this with Kraven. Now, the Red Band trailer kind of did a 360. He's a badass. He's brutal. His power sets are a little different from the comics. But later on that day, Twitter, Kraven the Hunter Twitter feed, tweeted out something that made me feel a little bit better. And I think I have this in the back of my head now with this trailer, and I'm starting to warm up to the trailer a little bit, but let's get nothing. Let's.
What did the Twitter account say?
The Twitter account said, all villains have an origin story, which leads me to believe that he is going to be a villain at some point. Although the trailer didn't depict that, it depicted him as this good guy undoing the evils of his father, which I don't like. That's not what this should be, but the Twitter feed said all villains have an origin story. So I'm hoping they get this right. But your thoughts?
I was incredibly... So there were parts of the trailer... Look, if this weren't Kraven the Hunter, the character, and it was just a trailer for the movie about somebody...
Right.
With this
a new character
storyline...
Right.
I would have been very encouraged. Oh, this looks like
cool.
Looks like a fun movie. Yeah. Looks like this guy's going to be a badass. This looks really cool. Redemption story for a son that's been son who's been oppressed by his father, and this is going to be great. Gets these superpowers after being attacked and mauled by a lion. This is fantastic.
That's another thing we need to talk about.
Now, my first reaction is, why do you need to continue to make bad guys good guys? Titanium, on the same page with you. I don't need my villains to be anti-heroes. Please stop it.
Yeah.
Okay? You're trying to set up this Sinister Six movie where these villains of Spider-Man are going to try to hunt him down and kill him, and we're going to now start feeling feelings towards these characters, like, oh, they're nice people. They have an agenda. They're trying to they're trying to do good, but they're just doing it in bad ways. Venom. I told you my biggest problem with Venom in the Tom Hardy movies is he's an anti-hero. It's a guy who's got this symbiote, laced within him and makes him want to do bad things, but he keeps it from doing too many bad things, and he kind of fights evil. And they did that with Morbius, and now they're doing it with Kraven. So am I supposed to believe that this Kraven the Hunter character is going to be a good guy that may want to do bad things to Spider-Man? What are you trying to convince me?
Not
audience?
From this trailer.
Right.
Not from this trailer.
So I'm super excited for the movie because it looks cool and it looks like it's going to be fun. But what they're doing to a known, notorious Spider-Man villain from the Sinister Six, come on, people.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right.
And why can't you just make a movie of a bad guy being bad?
Yeah. Right. I mean, The Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader didn't turn around and be a nice guy. I mean, come on, people.
There are movies out there that have been incredibly successful centered around villains. Look, great example. Christian Bale in American Psycho. Great movie.
Yeah.
And he was a bad dude the whole time.
Yeah.
You didn't ever think in that movie, oh, maybe he's really a good guy underneath.
Right.
No. He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Why can't you just make an origin story of Kraven the Hunter and have him go out and wreck house against people for the wrong reasons, and then set that up of like, oh, I hate spiders, and I want to look for my next conquest. Oh, I'm going to kill this person named Spider-Man.
It's this fear of I don't know, offending people. That, we've created this really bad guy in this movie about a villain and a bad guy that has bloodthirst. That is a hunter, a predator, the top of the food chain predator.
He's a big game hunter. His goal in life is to hunt and destroy the most powerful adversaries and predators on the planet. He wants to be the alpha predator. He wants to be the predator that that he's afraid of no other prey, and these alpha predators out there that think that they have nobody that can hunt them, he's going to go hunt them.
Yeah,
and prove that he's the biggest of the big.
His father, Russell Crowe, who plays his father in the movie, he was kind of in that vein. You got that vibe from him, like he was this. I don't care. You know what I do. I'm a bad guy.
She's too weak. You must let him die.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's what I want.
Right.
That's what I want. And again, he had the Russian accent. Well, why doesn't Kraven have a Russian accent? I don't get that. That was so weird. And the whole blood thing, like a drop of the lion's blood went into him, and that's what gave him these powers.
Infused him with his connection to animals allows him to hunt his prey.
Those three things bothered me the most. He's not really a villain. Again, he's some.
So let's be clear. In the comic books, he gets super strength and super senses through a potion that he drank. He drank a potion, right?
So this is my theory: is that lion was artificially given super serum to be a really tough lion, and this super powered lion to be a more adversary for the great hunters of his family, and it's out on the
prairie
in the wild, and they're hunting it, and they're trying to kill it, and they shoot it several times, and it bleeds into him, and his blood is infected with this super serum that infects him. Now if that happens, okay, I'm okay with that one aspect of it. But if it's not explained and it's just a drop of blood, that's weird and it's unbelievable.
But they were also talking about how he has this like connection with animals now,
yeah.
And then so like they showed this one scene where like
fucking
a wolf,
Dr. Doolittle. I mean,
a wolf was like it's like the Aquaman of the prairie. Now he can like command animals to do things on his behalf. Like a wolf was attacking somebody for him, and he
yeah, I'm telling you, is he a fucking Dr. Doolittle? I mean, come on.
Again, we've talked about this so many, and we'll talk about it later today when we talk about the Flash movie. So much of my enjoyment of these films have to do with where they're leading, what they're going to lead into, what the next thing that's going to come is going to be.
Yes.
And the prospect of telling a feel-good story about this boy who ends up becoming this great hunter and fights against his family who was oppressing him and his father who was oppressing him. Oh, so tiring. I mean, I want to be excited for this movie.
Me too. The need to have people love characters, it's so bad, and it's destroying the industry. It really is. I mean, think of this, Sony. Think of if you built a compelling character, a really badass guy, a bad guy that has this inner conflict. Doesn't do good in the movies, but he's a bad guy, he's a villain, and has this inner conflict. And you create such a story that people are craving, literally, no pun intended, craving to see this guy go up against Spider-Man. I mean, that's what you want. That's what the comic books were all about. And that's why the comic books built such a deep, rich fandom. I really think they missed the point. And the accent, I don't understand it. Why?
I don't get it either. And we've said this time and again. Every great comic book movie that we've enjoyed has had a compelling villain in that movie. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. We talked about, Loki in the first Avengers movie, Thanos obviously in the lead up to Endgame and Infinity Gauntlet. Huge, compelling, movie. Yeah. What did we just talk about? Guardians of the Galaxy was so good because a High Evolutionary was made a compelling villain.
Great villain.
If they're now trying to build this cadre of villains surrounding the Spider-Verse they're building out, that is, at this point in time, inclusive of Morbius, Venom, now ultimately Kraven, potentially some version of Vulture who may or may not have crossed universes. Who knows what the hell based on the Morbius post-credit scene.
Right.
What are they doing?
Right.
What are they doing?
I don't know.
Because eventually you should have established these, and even in No Way Home, you had every one of these Spider-Man villains in a freaking elevator riding up to the top of the apartment with, and just come on. Like, they're all of a sudden nice people. It's like, now, obviously Norman Osborn wasn't really a nice person.
How great was that?
Right. That was the twist.
That was the twist.
And what are you trying to do here, Sony? If you want us to believe that Spider-Man is all of a sudden going to be facing these incremental villains, and it seems like, we don't know because the trailer was very ambiguous about this, but there is a character in there that is ultimately going to become the Rhino, and we see at the end of the trailer, he takes some kind of serum or does something, and it turns his skin into like this rock hard, rhino skin.
His arm starts to transform into a rhino skin.
So maybe that is going to become the real Rhino, but are they...
Your opinion on that? Did you like that?
I didn't see enough of it to know much about it. Okay. But he's in a lot of the movie. He's in a lot of the trailer without being the Rhino. So
my opinion of that is badass. Like, I've always wanted, that's
the real Rhino.
The real Rhino.
You don't
want
the Paul Giamatti.
I don't want the Paul Giamatti, although I love Paul Giamatti. I don't want the mechanical robot, some kind of suit, something to that effect. This is what I want the Rhino to be. I can't wait to see how that ends up.
But then, wouldn't you think... I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. I wish I could say I trust Sony and what they're doing, but I've seen what they've done with the Venom movies. Not happy with them.
Yeah.
I've seen what they've done with Morbius. Not happy with it.
Special effects and the way Morbius looked was my favorite part of that. I thought he looked amazing.
Here's what I'll say. The only thing Sony has done, I'll say the amazing, both the original Spider-Man trilogy, the original one with Tobey Maguire was great. I thought the two Andrew Garfield movies were really good too. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, me too.
I thought they were great, and I thought they punted on Andrew Garfield way too soon to bring Tom Holland in. My personal opinion. The Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse have been fantastic and huge successes. Everything else they've done, I'm not a big fan of. Not a big fan of. And again, we got a Madam Web movie coming out.
Yeah.
We believe there's a Spider-Woman project in the future. Silk, potentially a character that they're going to be bringing.
Live-action Miles Morales movie, they've said and confirmed that they are working on.
But again, what makes Spider-Man a compelling hero is relevant villains that he can fight against. And if you're creating a movie to kind of bring a villain to light like this, but we don't really hate him, or we don't really think he's an adversary. Like, maybe he's got good in him and he's just doing a bad thing temporarily, and they may end up teaming up and going against something bigger. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's talk about the good things about the trailer. I love the Rhino thing. I love where that's going. I think that would be great. The brutality of this movie was off the charts. The way he moves, and he's moving around that room like a cat
climbing
on the walls and stuff.
That's great.
And then swinging on the car and running, jumping. The physicality and the look of that action scene was
great.
Biting the nose off of some guy in a car and spitting it out the window. Brutal.
It was great.
That is going to be... I'm a little bit excited about that, but I hope that they don't go down the road of anti-hero Black Adam, and they just had to make him likable. I hope it's an origin story where it turns that he is a bad guy. I think that would be good for the Sony, the Spider universe that they're trying to build. So we'll see.
And I agree with you. I think that'd be a way that they could rescue this. If yes, he does have to fight against his father and the oppression that his father and his whole family has levied against him, and ultimately needs to overcome that. But then he ends up becoming the bad dude.
Right.
Great. I'll be happy with that. Fine. So anyway, we'll see later this year, right? That's coming out
October
this fall, right? Yeah, exactly. So we will see.
We will see.
All right, another premiere today. Titanium and I had a chance to watch this today. The first episode of Secret Invasion came out today on Disney Plus. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It is really good. This is something that's been teased. We got a trailer for this last summer. It's been in the can for a while. It's been delayed a long time just because it really didn't fit into the schedule or whatever. But I have a feeling this is going to have some major repercussions across a lot of the future projects that Marvel's got going on. We just watched it today.
Spoiler.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, press pause, go watch it, and then come back and listen to us. But what'd you think? I mean, I liked it a lot. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I like the subdued humor. It's not trying to be
Sam
overly
Jackson
funny.
is just so good.
He is great.
He's just so good.
He's great, and the whole storyline is fascinating and smart. I really like watching this. I tried to watch it early this morning, but life, I was late to work, and life is getting in the way, so I had to pause it and come back and watch the rest of it this afternoon. And I was really excited to finish that. And wow, what a shocking ending! I mean,
well, a few things we have to talk through. So the first thing that happens in the literally opening scene of the episode, and look, we've alluded to this, surmised this. I think we're going to see throughout this series that a number of very popular individuals that we've come to know and love in the MCU as good guys may ultimately end up being Skrulls. And the big question is, well, how long have they been Skrulls?
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's what we don't know. The first scene is of Everett Ross, who we've seen in the Black Panther movies, Captain America, Civil War, CIA agent, kind of works under, for the government. Prevalent in both Black Panther movies, and in the latest Wakanda Forever movie, was actually on being hunted by the CIA at the end of the movie, and then rescued by the Dora Milaje. Yeah. So the big question is, so we find out that he's a Skrull.
At least, in this scene.
Well, the question is, how long has he been a Skrull? How long has Everett Ross been a Skrull? Has he been a Skrull all the way back to Captain America: Civil War, or has he just recently been a Skrull? One of the things we found out in the show is that the resistance, the Skrull resistance, kidnaps people, have the Skrulls take over their persona. And by the way, one of the powers we've seen in the show is not only can they take the appearance of an individual, but they can actually steal their memories as well, which is one of the things we saw on the show, that they'll kidnap an individual, the Skrull will take their looks, and then will actually steal their memories from them, and then they put the real person in stasis.
Right.
So the question with Everett Ross is, when did that happen? Did it happen recently? Did it happen 10 years ago?
Right.
Or how long has this been going on? How long has Everett Ross been a Skrull?
Or is Everett Ross in Wakanda being protected, hiding, and this Skrull just copied his form and was pretending to be? Right, I get it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the question.
So those are big questions. So Everett Ross, who ended up dying, the Skrull version of Everett Ross, ended up dying in the first episode very early on, but we found out he was a Skrull. So again, the questions we have is like, was this the Everett Ross that we've seen in all the movies up to this point, or is it just recent that this happened? We don't know.
And the reason why I think it's what I predict it will be is because there's scenes where the Skrulls are turning into people that they don't see or not in contact with. Especially the head guy was walking through the park at the end.
Crowd.
He's turning into multiple different people at will, which leads me to believe that they have that ability to turn into multiple different people without touching them, without taking over. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, that was shocking, and that does raise a lot of questions. If it is in fact him, he's been a Skrull for how long? When?
Well, and we have a feeling that there's lots of rumors. We know that James Rhodes is in the movie, very high I guess he's highly connected with the president right now.
Yeah,
advisor to the president,
him talking to the president,
right? And lots of theories about him being a Skrull in this movie. And so questions are, well, how far back does that go? Has Rhodey been a Skrull for many movies? And
if in fact he is
the one that was paralyzed, from the waist down, is it the Skrull version of him, and then Rhodey somewhere in some factory somewhere in stasis, still out there, right somewhere, and maybe the real Everett Ross is in stasis somewhere. We don't know.
The president is a Skrull.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. But
because isn't Thaddeus Ross in Captain America 4? Isn't he the president now?
Well, he's going to be President Ross. So we're thinking that this is leading into that ultimately the president may be
a Skrull.
Either a Skrull or taken over by a Skrull at some point in time during the series, and then ultimately gets obviously either killed or ousted.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so really
good show, man.
But the obviously main plot is that there's the Skrulls that were in the original Captain Marvel movie. Nick Fury and Captain Marvel were supposed to find them a new home. Right. They were displaced. They were here on Earth. They didn't want to be here. They wanted to find a new home. They were displaced from their home world. And what we find out is that there's a faction of that group that splintered off. So Talos, who was the good Skrull who was in Captain Marvel, is still working with Nick Fury and his team. Right? And we find out that his wife has passed away and was killed by the Resistance. So that's another thing. But there's this splinter group, and his daughter has now gone, who's Amelia Clark. She's now gone and working for this splinter group. And they're all about world domination. They want to take over Earth. They don't just want to find a new planet.
Yeah, because they want to make it theirs.
Nick Fury was unable to find him a new home, so they're going to make Earth their home. And we find out that they are growing their own food, and they're from their Skrull homeland on our Earth. There's a whole community of Skrulls living. We find out that they're immune to radioactivity, so they're living on abandoned nuclear power plants in Russia. So because people don't want to be there, but the Skrulls aren't affected by it. And there's this whole group of Skrulls that look like Skrulls just running around, but the individuals who are part of the Resistance have taken their human form, and they keep it because the longer they stay in that human form, the less likely it is for people to find out that they're Skrulls instead of humans. So that's why they do it. But it's being led by one of these individuals. His name's Gravik, I believe, right? And
he's the big bad.
Yeah, he's the leading. So the theories are that the Skrulls have been taking over the personage of individuals in influence or access around the world and starting wars and starting conflicts between countries in an effort to create a global war. And this most recent one is trying to create a war between Russia and the United States. So most of this episode occurs in Moscow, and there's a group called Americans Against Russia that they're trying to basically blame for a bombing that's going to happen in Moscow. And we find out at the end of the episode they do bomb this square during a festival in Moscow. The Skrulls do. And huge ending scene. So Maria Hill is, Nick Fury's right-hand person. She is part of the team. Her and Talos and Nick Fury are trying to stop this bombing. We find out two things. Number one, Gravik bombs the square and then becomes Nick Fury and shoots Maria Hill. Ooh. And kills her.
That was sad.
So looks like Maria Hill is dead.
Yeah, I mean she was listed in the credits. Colby Smulders. Colby Smulders was listed in the credits.
Special guest star, as well as Everett Ross, who was I can't remember his name too, but yeah. So that was one of the things we saw both of them in the trailers for this series, and every scene we saw them in the trailers was in this episode. So crazy. Makes you believe they're not in future episodes.
It doesn't look like it. I mean,
she's dead. She dies in the street.
Yeah.
But it seems
it's her
like
real body because it's blood.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. And usually when you kill a Skrull, they turn back into their original form, and she died as a human. So you're like, she's dead. huge twist at the end. But we do find out, in scenes from later episodes that Nick Fury becomes the most wanted man on the planet. So we feel that, the Skrulls are able to, become Nick Fury, and they're using his likeness to commit crimes, and now he's become, persona non grata, like, the de facto most wanted person in America. And so we also find out that Nick Fury's been struggling with life since the blip. It really affected him.
Yeah, Talos and Maria Hill several people had told him he hasn't been the same since the blip.
And the British MI6 person, she had also said, you haven't been the same since the blip, and so everybody's saying he has been sitting on the space station, Saber space station that we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah. And in the trailer for the Marvels.
Right. He's been living there, and that's what he's been doing. And this is the first time he's been back on Earth since the blip, and he's, basically been hiding out, quote unquote. And I think Maria Hill's death is now going to energize him and say, look, I gotta take care of business here, right?
That's crazy. That was a
great episode.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this whole series. And obviously, now we have something to talk about every week. I mean, that's going to be huge. So we'll be covering that every week.
And Talos' daughter, Gaia, who's played by Emilia Clarke, as you mentioned, she was with the Resistance, working directly for them. She finds out from her father that her mother had died, that she didn't know about, and was killed by the Resistance. And we feel that she's kind of switching sides now, or kind of on the verge of switching sides. So that may be happening here. Lots of rumors about her becoming much more involved in the MCU going forward as some character or some other character. So we'll find out.
Very interesting that she lied to her father and tricked him.
Obviously. I don't know if she did. So she might have been
set up herself?
Yes, I feel.
Yeah. She told her father that the knapsacks she would...
she marked them.
Marked the knapsacks, and when they filed the knapsacks, they were empty.
So the question is, did she double cross them, or did they know that she would do that?
Correct.
Right.
It's good. It's a good show.
It's really good so far.
It is a very good spy thriller.
Right.
Double agent spy thriller. You never know what's going to happen.
Sam Jackson as the lead of this, so good. Brent Mendelsohn as Talos, back. He's very good.
Yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn. Really, really awesome. And I think this is going to be a really, really good series. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the remaining episodes. So we'll be reviewing this every week, every episode, because it's going to be that good. So we'll maybe have to start timing our episodes around.
Hopefully Disney has a winner. Disney Plus has a winner on their hands.
Yeah. And what I think it's 6 episodes, right? I believe.
It's short. It's
6 episodes. 6. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll look forward to. All right.
Cool.
We'll get into the rest of that for on our next show for sure. All right, let's jump into the news. Again, we have so much stuff to talk about here. Since our last episode, Marvel came out with an official announcement. Look, people, we knew this was coming. There had been way too many reports, way too many rumors about massive schedule changes and schedule delays on the docket for Marvel.
The writer's strike, the actor's strike, the director's strike.
Just way too much. And look, the schedule that was announced at ComiCon last year was very ambitious, and it was before Bob Iger had come back, and we knew that Bob Iger had basically said, look, we need to slow down and focus on quality, not quantity, and so we believe there were some schedule changes going to occur because of that. But we got the official announcement here last week, and wow, was it a doozy.
Yeah.
Some big-time schedule shifts, and some of it just massive. We'll start off with the good news. Originally...
There's good news in here?
Yeah, there is some good news. So originally, Deadpool was scheduled to debut in the fall of 2024. That movie had been moved up 6 whole months to the spring of 2024 now. So we're getting Deadpool 3 in May 3rd, 2024. So this movie has been pulled up. Really good news. Obviously not affected by the writer's strike, since Ryan Reynolds is the writer, and the script has been written already. Not to worry about rewrites or things like that. They're already in kind of pre-production of this movie. Everything's on schedule there. But this movie has been moved up. Again, it was originally supposed to come out, I believe, in like August or September of 2024, and they moved it all the way up into May. So that's the good news. Good news is we're getting Deadpool 3 early 2024. Okay, so
good.
And that was originally the slot that had been on the docket for Captain America 4. Two things to announce about Captain America 4. First, a name change. So the original name for the movie was Captain America 4, Captain America New World Order. Mm-hmm. Didn't really test very well in popular society.
We talked about this last time that it was revealed. Yeah. Kind of
Brave New World is the new title, right?
Maybe they felt it wasn't PC enough.
Yeah, so that is the new title. And then that has been now slotted into the August 26, 2024 slot. So they've now pushed this back a full 4 months. So not too bad, but it is being pushed back one slot. And again, Deadpool's taking the Captain America spot. We know this movie is actively filming right now.
Captain America, yes.
We've seen scenes,
on-set
photos and everything else. So that movie is in production right now.
Yeah, push it back. Spend more time on CGI. I want a really fucking badass Red Hulk.
And again, we assume Red Hulk's part of this. We know the Serpent Society is going to be part of this. Really going to be a really compelling, maybe kind of the first. We'll call this an Avengers light movie, maybe potentially with a bunch of different characters. Captain America building his own team type of thing. So, but that's going to be August 2024. Then the Thunderbolts did get pushed from a July date in 2024 all the way to December 20th, 2024.
Yeah.
So that movie is now, and interestingly enough, this kind of corresponds to another delay that was on the Disney schedule that we won't really allude to here. The next Avatar movie was originally scheduled to be in December of 2024,
right?
But that has now been pushed to 2025.
Yeah.
So now Marvel could take a slot in December and not have to worry about fighting against Avatar,
right.
And therefore the Thunderbolts movie will be around the Christmas time in 2024. Again, this movie has been, we know, affected by some of the writer's strike delays. There's been some rumors about that. They have not yet begun production for this movie, but that's going to be in December 2024. So that one's been pushed. And again, not too bad. 5 months, so not totally 6 months, but about 5
I would imagine
months
that movie should start filming very soon if it's going to be next year, or if not, if it doesn't start filming, I would say by September. I could see another push for that movie.
Potentially. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But we'll see. We'll see how these strikes end up working out. The next one is Blade. So, again, we know everything that has happened with the Blade movie. Originally scheduled to be released this October. It was originally going to be released in October of 2023. It has now been officially pushed until February of 2025. So now we know everything that's happened here. The original script was garbage. Mahershala Ali threatened to quit the project because it was terrible. They fired the writer. They hired new writers. They're writing a new script. Mahershala Ali is very involved with the plot of the movie and the script for this movie. I think they're still going through that. They were supposed to start production of that movie here in Atlanta and New Orleans, I think a couple months ago. That's been pushed back, so this is the reason for the delay. Again, writer's strike has been part of this, but now scheduled to be released in February of 2025. So that, I'm glad it's coming out. I'm glad it's on the schedule, and I'm glad we have a date for it.
Yeah, exactly.
February 14th, 2025. The next movie, or the next film, is going to be Fantastic Four in May of 2025, May 2nd, 2025. Mm-hmm. Originally scheduled to be released in November of 2024. It is now going to be May 2nd, 2025. So that's being pushed back about 6 months. So a little bit of a delay there.
And we'll get into some other rumors about that. F4.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four movie.
So far, only 2 movies in 2025. nothing else on the schedule right now for 2025, but we do believe there will be an announcement by Sony this summer of Spider-Man 4 coming out in the latter part of 2025 as well. So Marvel is now kind of back into their original schedule of about 3 movies a year. We are getting 3 movies next year in 2024, right? We already know that. And so we're getting Deadpool, Captain America, and Thunderbolts next year in 2024. So far in 2025, Blade, Fantastic Four, and then nothing else on the schedule officially right now for 2025. But we do believe Spider-Man 4 will be that 3rd Marvel movie in 2025. Not yet announced.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet announced. The big surprise here was the 2 Avengers movies were basically just jettisoned into the Jetsons' future. Avengers Kang Dynasty originally was supposed to come out in May of 2025. This movie is now moving to May of 2026. Been pushed an entire full year. 2 things to say about this. I think part of this is related to the ongoing Jonathan Majors saga, which we will kind of get into here in a little bit. A lot of the other parts of it may be they feel they need to set up some more of the backstory and ancillary characters that are going to be participating in this.
Agree.
Which is giving them some more time to kind of figure out what they're going to do with this. But that's been pushed back a full year to May 1st of 2026. And the other big announcement was Avengers Secret Wars, which was originally supposed to come out in November of 2025, now been pushed to May of 2027. A full year and a half after its original scheduled date. And I joked with you when you showed me this news. I'm like, I think a lot of the actors they're trying to maybe have appearances in Secret Wars might not be alive in 2027. But yeah, we are now a full 4 years away from the Avengers Secret Wars movie coming out. Again, a part of it is we know there's I think a slew of movies that they have kind of planned that may be leading into the Secret Wars, like a Shang-Chi 2, an Eternals 2, Doctor Strange 3.
Yeah.
A lot of movies that we know are kind of on the Iron Wars, another movie. They just got to find time to fit those in. And if they're all going to play a part into this Secret Wars and potentially what happens with Kang Dynasty, we got to figure out. But man, that was a huge shift there.
Yeah, I mean,
are the Russo brothers even going to be alive then to like direct this movie potentially if they want to come back?
Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans. I mean, those guys are.
I mean, RDJ is already in his 60s. I mean, it's.
Well, look at Harrison Ford. He's in his 70s. He's still kicking it.
80s.
Is he really?
I think he's 81, 82.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Good for him.
Yeah. No kidding.
Wow. Indiana Jones and filming Captain America 4.
No kidding.
I mean, still working. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, CGI, the writer's strike, CGI issues, it's still a lot of movies in a short period of time to try to push out. Rumors or not, it's a tough. CGI lately has been a big issue for the fans, and I think it's affecting some of the moviegoers for sure. But we'll see. I think it's a good thing. I really do. Although as a fan, I hate it. I don't want to wait. I want it now, and I want it now, and I want it quick, and I want it great. But reality is, the more they push it back and the more time they put between these movies, the more time they can put into the special effects and the story.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and we'll talk a little bit about special effects when we get into the Flash movie. But yeah, Harrison Ford's going to be 81 next month.
Wow.
Yeah.
81,
man. All right. Well, huge schedule, and I think in general this kind of fits into our next topic.
This was a bombshell for me.
Wow.
Absolute bombshell.
Just came out, literally a big announcement by Marvel. I think rumors, and then
Thank God we didn't get our ComiCon tickets. Thank God.
I don't know. I probably still would be happy to go, but
of course we would have still gone.
But this would have been huge. Like if we were going and we heard this news, we would have been so pissed. So the announcement is Marvel is now going. So they're not going to be having an Hall H presentation. So all the big studios that have these massive presentations and announcements do it in Hall H, which is their big convention
venue.
hall.
Yeah.
This is what they did last year with the big stage and all the big announcements, brought everybody on stage to talk about their projects and everything else. Marvel will not be doing a Hall H presentation this year at San Diego ComiCon.
Marvel punted.
And so what that tells me is two things. One, they're not ready to tell us anything.
No.
No casting announcements for Fantastic Four. No.
With the casting announcements of Fantastic Four and all the issues with contracts and money and this and that makes sense. Jonathan Majors issue, I can see that. The writer's strike and all those
But don't you just want to see Kevin Feige on stage explaining everything?
Not really. It's done nothing for me for the past 2 years.
Well,
the past year, all he's done is
they're empty announcements.
Announcements.
If they're empty announcements. But I mean, I would love them to get up there and say, "Hey, we're making shifts to the schedule, and here's what's going to happen, and here's." I would have loved to see it, but and I think we are due some casting announcements and things like that. But the fact they're not ready for them, I think that's what it tells me. They're not ready for these announcements. I think that the writer's strike, as well as the Actors Guild and everything else that they're dealing with, fortunately, unfortunately, it's just putting everything back. My hope is that they're not just punting because they'd rather do it at D23 in September or whatever that is, which is probably what they'll end up doing.
Of course.
But I guess we should expect little to nothing from Marvel this summer, next month.
I think we'll get a
smaller presentation on something.
I think we'll get a smaller presentation.
Maybe a Marvels.
The Marvels trailer. I think we'll get the Marvels
another trailer. Marvels trailer.
I don't see what else. Maybe a couple of announcements, but I don't see them announcing anything big on Disney Plus until September, until the D23. So I don't know.
Why bother, right? Because if you do it in September, you've got. We know that the rest of this year.
Bless you.
Sorry, thank you. The rest of this year we have. Echo's coming out as a full drop in December, right? We know that, and then Loki season 2 is coming out in September, right?
What a great opportunity for Sony to step up to the big leagues.
I'm looking forward more to Sony now having, and I think they're going to have a huge panel at Hall H talking about Madam Web and some of the other projects they've got coming up here. Obviously, Kraven the Hunter. They've got a lot of things to talk about. I think Sony's going to have a big panel. And I think James Gunn is going to be up there with a big panel for DC.
That would be great. Make a big splash.
He's got some splaining to do.
His first Comic-Con?
He's got some splaining to do because you and I will talk about some of the things that we want him to explain. But, I'm looking forward to that. But, man, Comic-Con might be a big dud this year.
Maybe we get a Aquaman trailer. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
That's coming out. Remember?
And my hopes for that are not very high right now.
No, not after The Flash.
All right, so big announcement by them. Look, we'll talk about this. We'll continue to talk about this until there's no more news to talk about. The Jonathan Majors saga continues. He did have a court date this past a few days ago. It was a preliminary hearing and kind of setting the date for the trial. The trial date has been set for August, which also might be a reason why they're skipping Hall H presentation in San Diego. Is like that's in July, and we don't know what's going on with the trial for Jonathan Majors. More and more rumors of them writing him out in Loki season 2 and refilming stuff and reshooting stuff to kind of write him out of that role, just in preparation for his trial. It's not looking good.
But his attorney submitted more evidence of his innocence.
Whatever.
But the rumor is, and the word on the street is that his attorneys has submitted bombshell evidence of his innocence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, again, the trial date now is set for August. We'll see what happens there.
We'll pass judgment after the trial.
Here's what I know: Marvel has done everything and anything and everything they can to distance themselves from Jonathan Majors. Every time there's a major Disney Plus show. Typically, a couple weeks after that show finishes airing on Disney Plus, they come out with what's called Marvel Studios Assembled, which is kind of like the behind the scenes of them filming the show. They've also done that for every movie they've made and released onto Disney Plus. So, so when Thor: Love and Thunder came out, they did a Marvel Studios Assembled for Thor: Love and Thunder, the behind the scenes, filming of the movie or whatever, right?
Scenes they cut, things like that.
Yeah, just interviews with the actors and the director and everything else, right? So Quantumania was released to Disney Plus about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I believe. And typically 2 weeks after it releases to Disney Plus, they come out with the Marvel Studios assembled of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Well, it has not been released to Disney Plus, and it is basically not going to be released. It is on indefinite hold. Wow. They basically are not released because they don't want to have interviews with Jonathan Majors and putting him on screen and talking to people.
When they haven't made a final decision.
Right,
on the
they're
future.
just want to distance themselves. So this is just another sign that Marvel's just distancing themselves from him. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago how they've kind of stripped anything and every kind of reference to him as an actor, and if you look at a trailer for that movie right now, you don't see scenes of him. It's just crazy, really insane. So we'll see what happens with this. We'll keep an eye on it. I don't think this is going to end well for him. I think the character, and that again, huge reason why this Kang Dynasty movie has probably been pushed out is because they just got to figure out what they're going to do with this character. Really good news that came out this past week.
Finally.
Some good news. So Marvel now has officially regained the rights to the Hulk and Namor character and licenses from Universal Studios. And this dates back all the way to the 2003 Hulk movie that Ang Lee made. So 20 years had passed since Universal Studios had made a solo project for the Hulk, and that 20 years had elapsed, and Marvel then regained the rights for the Hulk and Namor character. Universal still owns the distribution rights for any movie that is made about the Hulk, but Marvel now has full control over the character, both of these characters, Namor and Hulk, and She-Hulk specifically as well, over the character, over any properties that character is used in, they can create a movie and do whatever they want to with these characters, and Universal has the rights to distribute that movie, but Marvel has full creative control over whatever they do with these characters now, whereas in the past they had to go through Universal. Right. So huge win for Marvel. I think huge win for us as fans. Big time rumors that they kind of knew this was going to happen. They knew that Universal had no plans of doing anything with these characters anytime soon, and they were just kind of waiting for the clock to start ticking. Look, we've heard rumors about them making a solo Hulk project and maybe doing a World War Hulk movie. Again, these delays that we've heard about some of these major projects maybe give some space to fit something like that in. I'm all for it. Hulk's one of my favorite characters. I love him.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, another repercussion of this, the Incredible Hulk movie that was made 15 years ago with Edward Norton is now on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So they were unable to put that on Disney Plus for lots of different reasons, and now since the rights have returned to them, they put that movie on Disney Plus this past week. So huge.
Yeah, that's a big one. And the Ed Norton Hulk, that movie showed the Hulk brutal, vicious.
I love that movie.
Big, nasty. The way the Hulk,
the Abomination, was done really well in that movie.
The way the Hulk should be.
That movie was great.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
I thought it was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I thought he was, and we've kind of gone over this in the past. The whole story behind Edward Norton, why he wasn't retained, and
right.
The fights he had with the studio and all kinds of other things. But I mean, that movie was made. People forget that was the second movie that was made in the quote-unquote Avengers saga, leading up to the Avengers movie. We had originally Iron Man 1, then we had Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Right? Then we had Iron Man 2, then we had Captain America, then we had Thor. And it was that was kind of the precursor to the Avengers movie. And then all of a sudden they recast the whole character. And Mark Ruffalo's done a fantastic job. I'm not going to discount him by any means. But
William Hurt played General Ross, Thaddeus Ross in that.
Yeah.
Huge.
And he has been Thaddeus Ross in every project up until he passed away here after the Black Widow movie. So I mean it really was done I love that movie. I thought it was done great. And to your point, that was the Hulk in the brutal Hulk fashion, right? drop him out of a helicopter and have him land on the ground and tear up into the Abomination. I mean,
not wearing Argyle sweaters and glasses and only being 6'5",
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So
that's good news.
Yeah, big news for Marvel. I'm really happy for that. We alluded to this earlier. More casting kind of rumors and news, and again, we'll continue to cover the rumors because until Marvel comes out with an official announcement, that's all they are, is just rumors. But the latest one being all of the roles that we had surmised had been filled for the Fantastic Four are still up in the air. We understand that some of the actors Marvel had been talking to take on the roles of the Fantastic Four, some of them had some pretty outlandish demands in regards to salaries that they would be commanding for these roles in the films. We had talked about this several episodes ago that Margot Robbie had been linked to be the new Invisible Woman, and then talks with her and her team resulted in a pretty outlandish kind of salary demand of like $20 million a picture. Mm-hmm. And again, if you're looking at a movie that's going to have 4 specific characters and maybe 2 or 3 of them are kind of bigger name actors and actresses, you can't, saddle the studio with, $100 million in actor salaries, before you even get to the studio or you get to the box office. So
each of them making 20. That's $80 million right off the bat, just in salary.
And you and I think we're a little bit disappointed when we heard some of these names like Adam Driver and Margot Robbie. Wasn't there a day where Marvel was a place that you went to become famous instead of taking famous people and bringing them to Marvel? And there was a handful. We've talked about this in the past. A handful of famous actors who came to Marvel. Robert Downey Jr. being kind of probably the most preeminent one, but he wasn't at the top of his game. He wasn't like an A-list actor.
Right out of jail and right out of rehab.
Right.
They took a huge roll the
big
dice
gamble
on him. Yeah.
Oh, big gamble on him.
Yeah.
Right. The story that they had offered the role to Clive Owen. That thought that he would be a better Tony Stark, and didn't work out. And they kind of settled to some extent on Robert, and it obviously paid off enormously for them.
Yeah, it did.
And subsequently, they have chosen to give these roles to some bigger actors and actresses. I mean, obviously, Brie Larson wins an Oscar, and she gets Captain Marvel, and Mahershala Ali wins an Oscar, and he gets Blade. And
Anthony Hopkins in the Thor movies. I mean, yeah.
They've had big actors in these. But, look, they've been responsible for making the careers of actors like Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. And I mean, this is where you came to become famous, right? And you and I were more interested in seeing that happen with this cast of like, hey, maybe one well-known actor,
an anchor of the 4, yeah.
But the others, well, here's the best news that we've heard. It seems as though, and again, nothing official, haven't heard anything from Marvel. It seems as though Marvel has pivoted on the role of Sue Storm and is now being linked to Vanessa Kirby, British actress, probably most well known. She was in, I think, the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, and she's in the new Mission Impossible movie with him as well here coming up. Very beautiful actress. I think she fits the role well. And from my perspective, the kind of, I would say, level of actress that I would like to see in this role of somebody who's known, but not extremely well known.
Right.
Somebody that can play the role and do it well, and a great actress, but not somebody who's going to command a $20 million salary.
Yeah.
Right? When I heard this now, so I was like, and again, theoretically, the director's first choice was Vanessa Kirby too. So big win for them if it's true. Again, we don't know anything official, but
all speculation. Adam Driver is in, he's out, he's in, he's out. Who knows? We'll find out. And unfortunately, we were looking forward to perhaps an announcement
next month
in July in Hall H, but that's not going to happen. I think we might get an announcement in September at D23. That seems like more the timeline.
Especially since that movie has been pushed back now.
It's been pushed back. They got plenty of time to work out contracts and deals with other actors and actresses. So we'll see. That's interesting.
Yeah. So big news. I mean, again, I think this saga will continue. We'll continue to talk about casting rumors until we get an official announcement. Yeah. That's kind of what happens with Fantastic Four. All right. Well, let's get into our topic of the week this week, brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios.
Studio G.
Home of the man band, Corn on the Cob.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Studio G, for all your support. We really appreciate everything you do for Super Talk. Top of the week this week is our full review of the Flash movie. So I had been able to screen the movie a week in advance. We kind of did our preview last week, non-spoiler preview, through our Q&A session that you and I had. And then you and I did go see the movie with you again last Thursday. And look, I had a million things I wanted to talk to you about. And I couldn't talk to you about it because you hadn't seen the movie. But now you've seen it. So we'll talk about it here. What did you think?
Okay. There were some problems to this movie.
All right. Buckle in, folks. Here we go.
And let me start off by saying it's a great movie. And I really enjoyed it.
Great.
It's very entertaining. It's great movie. I really enjoyed it.
It was an entertaining movie.
It's very entertaining. And it pulled on the nostalgia heartstrings that I wanted it to. So that being said, your early assessment of everything that bothered you about it was spot fucking on. Absolutely spot on. Very similar issues that I had with it. I had a few other ones, but let me be on the record as saying it's a good movie. Go see it. I think it's a movie that I would probably see again. Absolutely, I'd see it twice.
I just, before you get going, I do want to say, as we alluded to earlier, if you just look at this movie as a self-contained movie that was just built to entertain us, it did that. Sure. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
But something that we look forward to in these films is, what does this mean for the next film, for the future of the Justice League, for how this character fits into the bigger picture, what's going on next? That's where it just fell flat and fell short. But to your point, if you want to go be entertained by a superhero movie, go see The Flash.
Yeah,
I mean, look, I was willing to see it a week later after I'd already seen it.
Yeah.
And it was entertaining the second time as well. I enjoyed the movie. That being said, there are problems.
There are. And I'll go on the record as saying, I thought the story was great. I thought the story, as a self-contained, the story was great. And I thought the director did a phenomenal job. Here's another thing I loved about the story.
Oh, by the way, spoiler warning. I just want to say, if you haven't seen the movie, we will be talking about stuff in the movie, so spoiler warning. But go ahead.
But spoiler warning, you've seen the box office. The thing is fucking tanking all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's going to go see it if they haven't seen it already, but that's a good thing. Spoiler warning. A couple of things I liked a lot. I thought the directing was phenomenal. I think he's a very good director, and the story that he had to work with was unbelievable.
And so no surprise that he has been offered the job for the next Batman movie. I thought he did a great job in directing. Yeah. I think you're exactly right there.
Another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is, even though I don't like Ezra Miller as the Flash, and I don't, I think a lot of his, you nailed it on the head, a lot of his mannerisms and a lot of his acting was very corny. But that being said, the fact that he acted, not just acted, but the fact that the film had two of him in it, in a lot of scenes, they acted together, they were together in the film, was seamless. Like, it never occurred to me that those were two different people. At some point in time, my mind put them in the same universe as two actors together. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was very well done, how they took one Ezra Miller and they put him up against another Ezra Miller, and the story worked with those two guys. Now, some of his mannerisms and some of how goofy he was kind of irritated me. You nailed it on the head. The way he runs with his pointy fingers and he's almost like he's swimming through mud instead of just flat out running. You wanna exaggerate your arms when you're running like the Flash? Okay, do it. But to over-exaggerate and over-exaggeration was too much. That really kind of bothered me a lot. Another thing that I did not like about the movie was, and this is going to get I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, it's Superwoman. I didn't like her. I thought she did a great job in her short period of time that she was there. Her character was never really developed, so it's kind of not really fair to put any hate on her. I just didn't like her at that character. I think she's a great actress, and she played the part very well, but I just didn't like her in that spot. And to be honest,
part of that, you mentioned this to me right after the movie. Part of that is your historical depiction of the character and how it was changed. Like your vision of
was in the cameos.
Right. Yeah. Your vision of Supergirl is a blonde version of Supergirl, right? And to have, and not Sasha Calle is Kaye or Callie, I don't know how you say her name. I thought she was one of the better parts of the movie, personally.
She could be, and not. I'm just not looking for a blonde, because she could have been the sister of Henry Cavill. I mean, right. They looked a lot alike.
They did.
So to be cousins, they looked a lot alike. That didn't bother me. I don't know what it was. I just didn't like her in the film. I really didn't. Was it the short hair? No, maybe not the short hair, but I don't know. I didn't like her as Wonder Woman. Another thing that I didn't like was some of the jokes were a little corny. Some of the things that I did like was how heartfelt it was and how emotional it was. I thought that was really good. The story was really good. And some of the cameos at the end were really good. And the Michael Keaton, again, for me, Michael Keaton stole the show. He absolutely stole the show. The way they brought him in as this old hermit, and then he kind of rallies, and then he helps them, and I thought it was great. And his comedy, the way he delivered those lines, even though I saw it in the trailer. Yeah, I'm Batman. Even though I knew it was coming, it's still, my hair stood on end when he said it. Like I got goosebumps when he said that.
I told you when I watched it in the screening, the biggest cheers that happened in the theater of this, again, packed theater for the screening, the biggest cheers were of Michael Keaton doing the 1989 version of Batman Michael Keaton stuff.
Yeah.
As people were like cheering when he was doing it. And you're right. That was easily the best part. Because it was basically, he was playing that character. We were in the 1989 version of Batman Michael Keaton universe.
Yeah.
And the explainer that we got was, hey, I did such a great job in my couple of movies that I was in that Gotham's the safest city in the world. You know, it's fantastic. And then I don't need to be Batman anymore. And
how awesome was that?
Yeah. Yeah, and so
again,
that was
the story was
but
good.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was great. And it was the same costume that he wore back then. It was the same Batwing. It was the same Batmobile.
So
it was
good.
Awesome.
The nostalgia was off the charts. Again, it hit me in the nostalgia vein. That nostalgia nerve.
It racked you nostalgia nuts.
It sure did.
Yeah.
It sure did. And I'm still buckled over from it.
Yeah.
Now, it had a Morbius moment. And you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm fucking talking about, Professor. You know what I'm talking about. And it almost ruined the fucking movie for me. I'm sorry, guys. This is a big spoiler. But one of the cameos in this movie is an old Batman that shows up at the end, and it is brutal. George Clooney. Arguably not my favorite Batman. But the fact that he shows up and takes the place of Ben Affleck as the Batman, Bruce Wayne, and he shows up and his corny fucking look and his smile and the way he acted was almost like he was pitching his tequila. Like it was a tequila commercial. That's not Batman. It was so irritating. And it
arguably in the worst Batman movie ever.
It ruined the ending for me of that movie. It really did.
And that was something that I just couldn't wait to talk to you about.
Oh!
And it was like,
I'm so glad you didn't spoil it. It
movie.
was cringe as shit.
I'm
so glad you didn't spoil that for me. Because it was awful. Another thing, one more last thing. The Iris West, insignificant. They could have cut all of her scenes out. I don't even know why she was in the movie. I thought her scenes were filler scenes. I don't understand that whole scene with her and she's a reporter and stuff. It didn't make sense to me, and that was kind of weird. It was very forced that they pushed her scenes in that movie. I thought they.
So I had mentioned to you during our preview the CGI and special effects. What did you think about that?
So you were absolutely correct. Some of it is very wonky, especially during
bad at times.
Very bad. Now, since then, some people have come out and said that, well, in the Speed Force, it's a different reality. When he's in the bubble that they call, and I can't remember.
The time bubble.
But it's called something. Yeah. The Concorde or whatever it is. I'll put it up on the screen for you to. Anyway, the area there that looked kind of fake and kind of plastic.
It looked like a coliseum.
Coliseum of almost like claymation.
Right.
They said that was done on purpose because it's in a different reality. It's in the Speed Force. Then the babies that kind of looked weird at some point, the big scene, which I thought was awesome, but the CGI was wonky in that. They said that was on purpose because you're looking at in the perspective of what's in the Speed Force, and nothing is weird and nothing is perfect in the Speed Force.
That's the internet trying to explain that.
I understand that.
It was bad CGI. It was
actually the director said
it's just bad CGI. It was bad CGI. I mean, and you can't do it any other way but to use... Well, you can. And they chose to use CGI. So that's my point. Could you have had a real baby floating on a green screen and could have done that? Yes. But they chose to do it with CGI.
Yeah.
Every single baby looked like a claymation baby.
Yeah, it looked real wonky.
And it was... and the dog with his tongue hanging out and wagging. I mean, it's just like the CGI... that whole hospital scene was just like... And again, the scene should have been and was a fantastic scene with him like pushing things away and then breaking into the vending machine and fueling himself up while he's trying to save all these babies and the woman. And I get it, but the CGI was so bad. And again, the point of when they were in that Speed Force area, the CGI was so bad there too. And I'm like, the dependence on CGI was way too much. Yeah. And I thought that it was done very badly.
The babies was a little wonky, and there was another CGI scene that I was just like, oh my God, how could they put that in the movie? Like, that was so bad. Like, that looked awful.
Which one?
It was a cameo scene where somebody's fighting a giant spider.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was...
Nicolas Cage's Superman.
So I want to talk about a few things.
That was horrible.
That we didn't get to talk about the last time. So, obviously, Ben Affleck is in the first part of the movie, plays Batman.
Does a great job.
And I thought his scenes playing Batman, riding the motorcycle, dropping out of the airplane, riding the motorcycle, and then ultimately, like, kind of, having to get... And, of course, Gal Gadot shows up as a cameo in the movie, saving them with her lasso of truth.
Totally forgot about that.
Truth. She's in there as a cameo. Mm-hmm. But I thought he did a very good job. And to your point, then they go through this whole movie, and he has a discussion with Barry of like, hey, you can screw everything up. And then Barry comes back from the past, and after everything's been redone and remade, and he saves his dad from getting convicted because he moved the tomatoes from the bottom shelf to the top shelf or whatever. And then
cool story. I like that story.
George Clooney shows up and rolls out, and it was like it could have been anybody that rolls out of that. It could have been Michael Keaton, and the rumors I've heard was originally that's what they were going to do, is that Michael Keaton's Batman was going to be the one that walks out of the car. And that would have made a lot more sense, that they kind of combined the universes, and then the Michael Keaton version was the one.
Dude, I would have smiled from ear to ear
if that had happened. Right.
If that had happened, if Christian Bale walked up as the Batman, I would have lost my shit.
That would have lost my shit. That would have been the home run.
I would have lost my shit.
The home run would have been Christian Bale.
Agree.
Okay. I'll say the one that would have kind of been like, Robert Pattinson.
Interesting.
That would have been like, maybe they're going somewhere.
I don't think James Gunn would have let that happen.
Right, because
pushed that out.
He's Elseworlds, right? Exactly. But Christian Bale
would have been a fucking home run.
We would have been so. But George Clooney, it was just like, are you doing that for
disappointing?
Right.
Michael Keaton, I would have loved. Ben Affleck, even if he had been, I would have thought would have been great.
So what Titanium was talking about the cameo of Nicolas Cage. there was a portion of time when they were in the Speed Force. So, don't want to get too much into the plot of the movie because it's kind of complicated, but they're in Michael Keaton Batman's world with Sasha Calle's version of Supergirl trying to fight against Zod. And they're trying to defeat Zod and all of the other Kryptonians who are there. There's no Superman there. They're trying to do this. And the Flashes are helping out. They try to do it, and it doesn't work. Sasha Calle gets killed. Supergirl gets killed. They decide to run back in time. And oh, by the way, younger, annoying version of Barry all of a sudden knows how to run back in time, and he's had powers for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's taken years for Barry to figure this out, but now 15 minutes later...
Or how to phase.
Younger, annoying version of Barry can do it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the younger version of him was probably... I find Ezra Miller annoying in general, but I thought his adult version of Barry was subdued. Which I thought he did a very good job.
Yes, I agree.
But the younger version of him was so annoying. It was Ezra Miller annoying.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And oh, by the way, so they go back in time again. They said, we can fix this. Let's try again. Let's reverse and we'll try again. When they reverse and they come back and they try again. And they kept doing it over and over and over again. And that's kind of the plot of the movie. Well, they do it so many times that Michael Keaton dies a couple times or whatever. They do it so many times that it creates this paradox. And all of a sudden, all these alternate worlds or universes are colliding. And we get to see what are in these alternate universes. And that's the nostalgia kind of fan cameo scenes that we got. We got Christopher Reeve and who's the girl that played Supergirl in the Supergirl movie, which was so horrible in the 80s. What the hell? Bad. I can't remember the name.
I can't remember either, but yeah, she was in it.
If you ever watched that, if you haven't watched the Supergirl movie from the 80s, go back and watch it. It's probably one of the most corny, terrible movies you've ever watched. Yeah. But they made that movie after the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, trying to kind of bring her into the universe. But she's in a cameo with Christopher Reeve, which was kind of cool. It's like, oh, okay, the two of them together in a world. Very cool. And then they had this version of Superman fighting against this giant spider, and he's got long hair and kind of a darker uniform. Or like, look at him.
Spider.
And it turns around, and it's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And again, this is nostalgia. For everybody who doesn't remember, after Christopher Reeve had his accident, they were talking about who was going to be the next Superman, and Nicolas Cage had been offered the role.
Tim Burton's Superman film.
He had been fitted for a uniform. They had done some
screen testing,
pre-production testing of him as Superman
in a couple of different suits. Yeah,
there's scenes of him in suit, so like he was in the suit. And they basically took pictures of him in the suit with his long hair and made a cameo of Nicolas Cage, which was just crazy.
Yeah.
There was Cesar Romero and
Adam West.
Well, that whole version, it was the Joker and the Penguin and Burgess Meredith and all. We got all that. So it was a lot of fan service of a lot of the old DC characters. We got the Jay Garrick from the Flash TV show was in there. So a lot of different cameos that we got to see, and there's a lot of fan service. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I mean, and this is something that I mentioned to you, was that I saw this movie as kind of a stamp on the end of the Snyderverse.
Agree.
Is that let's take the Justice League that Snyder created, and Ben Affleck's Batman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and Ezra Miller's Flash, and put a stamp on it.
I hope so. And after this movie, I'm a big believer in that's what this was.
I mean, do you see any future with Ezra Miller and George Clooney?
I do not.
Do you see any future with Ezra Miller at all?
I do not.
I hope not. No, I mean, that might be. I hope to God.
I know you hope not, but I don't see it from as a perspective of after watching this movie, moving forward with James Gunn's universe. I don't see it.
No, I don't see it.
I don't see it.
And so I saw it as kind of a stamp on the Snyderverse, and that's fine. As I mentioned when I did my preview, I thought that this was a very good take on the Flashpoint Paradox storyline from the comics. I thought they did a very good job of taking that story. Barry goes back in the past. He loses his powers. He has to find a way to get his powers back, which he ends up doing in the movie. The younger version of himself was not part of that, but that kind of like fit into all of this. I thought the whole Michael Keaton version of Batman was awesome. I didn't mind Sasha Calle as Supergirl. I thought she was actually pretty good. I thought bringing Zod and that whole thing into the story was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great way to do it.
And having them win,
right,
really cool.
Continually,
yes,
was really cool.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things about it I liked.
Again, great movie.
Yeah. Then the George Clooney thing was like the puke, Morbius moment that you were like, oh my God.
Yeah. Then the end credit scene.
And I told you, asked me, like, well, is the end credit scene any good? I said, it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
And it was. So we can describe the end credit scene. So go ahead. Give me your perspective of it.
Well, it's the Flash, Barry Allen, and Arthur Curry, Aquaman, which is Jason Momoa, coming out of a bar all hammered, and he falls in a puddle and says, "I'm going to be right here."
Go get some more beer.
Go get some more beer. Yeah. He's like, but my metabolism is I can't get drunk. My metabolism is too fast. I can't get drunk. He's like, well, go get some more beer for me. And it was kind of ridiculous. It didn't. Did it make you believe that?
Did it perpetuate that this is where they're going with?
Again,
no.
Nothing. Not even the end credit scene. Nothing made me believe that there was a future for any of these characters moving forward. I think it was a nod to Aquaman and the Flash being friends. And
again, a poster, a stamp on the
Snyderverse. That movie, I think this movie was the main directive.
And it was a kind of a funny moment in the movie when he was like in this alternate universe. He's looking for the other members of the Justice League, and he's like, "Oh, Victor Stone. Oh, he's still like playing football in high school. Well, he's not Cyborg yet."
Right.
And they're like, Diana Prince. Well, no, it's not some high school teacher from wherever. She's not the real person. And they're like, oh, we got to find Arthur Curry, and they call his father, and the guy that lives in the lighthouse, and he's married to some like older, heavy set woman, and he's like, you didn't marry the Queen of Atlantis? And he's like,
maybe,
no. Yeah, maybe.
Right? My dog's name's Arthur.
Right. So, but I thought it was a stamp. Here's my big question after this. So James Gunn talked about how great this movie was. He said, one of the best superhero movies.
One of the best superhero movies he's ever seen.
Do you think now that you've seen it, it was a self-serving comment as the guy who's now the new head of DC, or do you think he was being sincere?
Both. And I say that for two reasons. One is I think he does believe it's one of the best superhero movies ever. I think he was very close to this movie, not only financially, but reputation-wise. I don't think he wanted to hurt anybody by saying anything different. So I do believe that it was, in his mind, one of the great superhero movies. And with all those cameos, I think that's, can be justified. Arguably, yes. I think he did mean that. Two, I think he did it to preserve this movie so it wasn't a flop. He did it for Warner Brothers, to save face for Warner Brothers, and that was probably maybe part of his contract. You can't.
But he came out recently and said, look, this movie's not part of the DCU. The first DCU movie is Blue Beetle.
Yes.
That's the first DCU movie, first DCU character. And so it makes it seem like the Blue Beetle character is one that we might see in the future of the DCU that he's
moving
creating.
Forward, yes.
But he basically came out and said this movie is not part of the DCU.
He did say that. Chapter 1.
He did say that.
Of Gods and Monsters is not going to be part of his world.
It's not. So I have a lot of questions for you, and I know we've been an hour and 20 minutes already. So let's kind of get to this. Do you see a future of Ezra Miller as the Flash in James Gunn's future DCU?
After this movie, no.
Okay.
No.
Do you see a future for any character we saw in this movie going forward?
No. I think you're right. It's a stamp on the Snyderverse.
So you think every Snyder? So you think Gal Gadot? You think Ben Affleck? You think George Clooney? You think Michael Keaton?
Don't say George Clooney.
I know, but I mean, there were rumors that now Michael Keaton was going to be kind of like the alternate version of Batman that was going to go forward in the DCU, and so we just think that this is just a standalone end of the Snyderverse kind of thing. And we're just going to leave it as it is.
I think that, yes.
Do we think we're ever going to get a real announcement about that?
Yes, I do. I think he's going to make some announcement moving forward with his Superman legacy and the casting of Superman legacy.
Do you think he's going to treat Aquaman 2 similarly?
I think he has to.
Do you think there's a chance...
Now, ask me if I think Aquaman 2 will be released.
Yeah, that's what I said. Do you think there's a chance they don't release that movie?
I think their best bet is to move that straight to streaming.
Straight to Max.
Straight to Max. Put it on Max and market
and make it another stamp on the Snyderverse, and just that it's a standalone project, and just let it go.
Send it straight to Max.
I agree with
face
you.
with the bad.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Don't bring it to the box office, because why fake it? Why make it seem like this character's got any future?
Use it as a subscriber carrot for those that don't subscribe to Max. Use it as a subscriber. Oh, this month is Aquaman special. Subscribe to Max, get 1 month free. Your second month you're underwater, but this month you're free. Right. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he'll have to do the same thing with that movie of, well, Aquaman, he could be a very big part of what we got going on with the DCU, and I think Jason Momoa is one of the best character actors in the DCU and all kinds of other things. And then go through the movie and you find out that they have this storyline that doesn't fit into any bigger picture and doesn't carry any weight going forward, and they have post-credit scenes that allude back to Snyderverse, and it just ends it.
I think the Gunverse will not allude back to Snyderverse anymore. The only thing, and this is a far off fetched dream of mine, is that Michael Keaton comes back as Bruce Wayne's father in some flashback or something.
Who knows?
You know what I'm saying?
I get you.
But that's it. That would be it.
Yeah. So, I think my hopes for the Aquaman 2 movie are diminished significantly. I think your point is valid. They should just put this on Max and just like punt it.
Yep.
Because why fake it at this point in time? You faked it with Shazam. They did. They faked it with Shazam before that movie came out, and then made announcements after the fact. He's faked it with Flash now. I don't think he needs to fake it with Blue Beetle. I think he's kind of happy with where that is and where it might be. And I think he's going to fake it with Aquaman. And I'm just like, dude, why fake it?
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to what he's got planned for the DCU going forward with his movie and his stories that he's making. But why pretend that these fit into anything?
I agree.
And again, if you would just want to make them standalone, say, hey, maybe people go watch a movie in December and we'll be happy about it, maybe.
The box office is going to be telling. I mean, look what's happening to The Flash.
So tell me what's happened. What's the story?
It's done some pretty big numbers domestically, but it's fallen off worldwide, and it really dropped off significantly that second weekend. So
last weekend was the first weekend.
No.
Yeah. Came out on Thursday, the first night that we saw it.
Well, the movies dropped off significantly. Like, it's not
so like the post opening weekend box office is dropped dramatically.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't see.
Well, again, and they did massive screenings leading up to it, like
they
massive
for free to a lot of fucking people.
Like I was one of them.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I think they wanted to build a lot of hype, but I think it kind of backfired.
Yeah, who knows? But I don't think there's any future for any of these actors going forward. I think of all of the existing Snyderverse characters, or actresses and actors, I thought Gal Gadot was the only one I could have thought potentially had a future with James Gunn's DCU. And even now, I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Start fresh. Go younger. Have more time to build stories with these younger actors. We've talked about it 100 times. I think that's the way to go. Even with the Batman story, with Damon Wayne, his son, that he's training. I think you go with a younger
Damian.
Batman. Yeah, Damian. We'll see. Great show, Professor. Let's ring the bell.
And sorry for going so long today, folks, but we really appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah.
That's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we out.
1 hour and 29 minutes.
Haters gonna hate, and I know you can't wait to see the black viper. Round and round she goes, hardly no one knows. In her black lady hose.